information in here, just sort of result of the way that the agenda was set up. We had some extra speakers that we decided to put into the specific session, so Deb will do the presentation. So 15 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah, I wasn't sure how long my presentation was supposed to be because I was bouncing around, so we'll see how long it is.
So I'm Diana Craig. I'm with the U.S. Forest Service in California, and I'm at regional office. I'm also the steering committee chair for the California House. So I'm really interested in Nexus.
I'm Rick Truitt. I'm the Regional Wildlife Ecologist for the Forest Service Rocky Mountain region here in Denver. And I'm on the Southern Rockies LCC Steering Committee, and we have a couple CFLRs in our region.
You're sort of working with us on the Great Northern.
Trying.
It's good to meet you. Yeah. Melissa?
I am extremely unimportant. Just talk loudly. That's all that I ask.
Melissa is taking notes.
I'm Peter Williams. I work for the Forest Service's National Office. I'm based in Fort Collins. The staff I work for is the System Management Branch.
I'm Dave Huffman, and I'm the Director of Research and Development for the Hydrological Restoration Institute at Northern Arizona University. I've been working as co-chair on the Science and Monitoring Working Group for the World Forest Restoration Initiative, and we are not within LCC boundary between Southern Rockies and Desert LCCs, and so I'm here to learn more about how ecological restoration institute can help in support the science needs, and then how we can get the Full Forest Restoration Initiative involved in one of those LCCs.
I'm Polly Hayes. I'm the Regional Water Program Manager for the Forest Service here in the Rocky Mountain region. Work with Rick. He's our main tie to LCCs. But some of the things I've been involved in that are related are, of course, our Washington framework, as some of you may know about it. And also, I'm on the steering committee for a project led by a colleague of mine where we did pilot watershed vulnerability assessments for climate change for 11 national forests throughout the country. And all those presentations are up online on the Climate Change Resource Center website.
Right, and we actually have worked with the folks in the Northern Forest, and we understand some of those that are happening as well.
I'm Deanna Stouter, I'm Associate Deputy Chief for Research and Development in Washington, D.C. with the Forest Service. Part of my role is looking at research and land management partnerships. I'm Jane Hayes, I'm with the Pacific Southwest Research Station. I'm the Assistant Station Director and have provided science guidance for our core research programs. We are also partners with the region in many activities, including working in LCCs, as well as serving on stakeholder advisory council on the Southwest Climate Science Center and starting to participate now with the Pacific Island.
Hi, I'm Frank Shipley. I'm a senior scientist with UAGS in Seattle. I'm also the chair of the North Pacific Science Subcommittee. And first, our LCC is defined by Denver rainforest, basically. And we're just starting to get a grip on what are the questions from Northern California to the Kenai, degrees of latitude there in ours. Trying to scope out where we're going for us. It's a huge issue in our area.
Hi, I'm Sheree Sidorelli, Chief of Resource Management Sciences for the National Parks. So I have the implementation role where you're trying to get information for the decision makers. And I used to be with the Alliance Chief of Political Science Integration.
I'm Tim Rowe, I'm the LCC coordinator for Peninsula, Florida. I've been coordinator for 6 months, and so I guess my primary role here is to understand the U.S. Forest Service acronym. No, I just kidding. I worked at for 36 years. I want to understand better some of the programs inside of the Forest Service that we kind of work together on. There, we have 3 national forests in Florida.
I'm Jeff Lucas with the Western Water Assessment, which is the NOAA research program based at the University of Colorado. Our bailiwick is trying to help resource managers bring climate science and information into planning and management. I'm on the science working group for the Southern Rockies LCC, also engaged with the Forest Service and Nature Conservancy on some forest management, not specifically restoration activities, but more climate change vulnerability assessment.
I'm Tyler Boyle, I'm an evaluator at the OIG, I'm one of those guys that don't tell you to get drunk.
Nobody tells you to think about it.
Our role is transforming more from fraud-based tech field to more of a best of policies tech field because we recognize that this is a program in its infancy, so I'm just here to observe and trust qualifications, so it's no big deal.
I'm Susan Martin, I work for the Sanders Coalition of Grand Junction. We work with a bunch of different watershed partnerships to do restoration activities, mostly in the Colorado River Basin, and we're trying to figure out how to get those partnerships to collaborate more, and we're looking to see how that aspect.
I'm Jean Brennan, I'm the Appalachian LCC coordinator. Our area covers 15 states and it has 14 national forests as well as quite an extensive amount of state-owned forests. And obviously the national forests in our landscape are very critical partners in our LCC.
Dolores Salmiano, Fish and Wildlife Service, Climate Change Coordinator for Fisheries and Habitat Conservation Program. So I'm here to learn about how we can work with it.
Are you in Arlington or?
Yes. Eric Gold with the Wildlife Conservation Society. They work across America on a variety of climate change issues and projects for the various
I'm Tom Schreiner. I work for the, used to be the state wildlife agency, is now Colorado Parks and Wildlife, which is merged with parks. But I'm the climate change coordinator. We also do a lot of drought planning. So I know that we need to get well connected with, actually there's 3 different LCCs that encompass Colorado. The Great Northern is one of those, touches the part of Northwest Tip. So really we want to be able to get fully engaged in all 3 LCCs and some of the interests that we have relative to the forest issues is what are the impacts of climate change on aquatic resources, and then also looking at the short-term and long-term implications of how climate impacts habitats as well as populations of species.
And I'm Leo Acosta with the U.S. Government Accountability Office, GAO. We currently have a review underway, basically follow up on the 2007 report, whereby we recommended that Interior, Ag, and Common develop values for resource managers on the rest of the country.
Are you another one of the guys that's supposed to take out there? If it's slightly.
I heard something to that effect. I'm all for it.
I'm Michael, the camera guy.
So I'm Sarah Hines, I'm with the U.S. Forest Service Research Station, science degree staff in Fort Collins. Not directly involved in any of this yet, but just here to learn more.
Yeah, and Jan, you just recently started with Jan.
Yes.
I'm Steve Fuller, and I'm coordinating conservation design for the North Atlantic LCC. We're working on developing landscape conservation design in 13 local states, which crosses 3 LCCs. I also coordinate the New England Continental Initiative. One of the things I'm interested in with regard to the Forest Service is what we can do to make it easier to share FIA data.
I'm Louise
Science TEK Subcommittee for North Pacific LCC. I'll be a liaison to the LCC in Alaska for the Forest Service.
And I'm Sam Forrest. I'm the National Wildlife Ecologist for the Forest Service. I'm stationed in Washington, D.C. I work in the Beltway primarily. Part of the Yale framework that you've come to hear about today this morning. Also, the National Wildlife Federation's Climate Smart. There's some people here that I need to meet.
My name is Jim Dawson with Board County Parks and Open Space just up the road. I'm a land acquisition officer, and among my other roles, the project coordinator for the Federal Land Exchange in Willoughby County, and I'm just on an information database.
My name is Paul Miller. I work with the Bureau of Reclamation in Colorado, based out of Boulder City, Nevada. I'm a hydrologic engineer that works on a lot of different climate change issues, and I work really closely with the Desert LCC. So one of the science needs that's come up is disturbances to forest lands. So
my name is Patrick Bixler. I'm a PhD student at Colorado State. I'm trying to figure out this thing you guys call cross-scale linkages. So if you guys have any ideas about how to operationalize that, please come talk to me. My project is actually, my dissertation project is going to map, use social network analysis to map the connections between community-based conservation groups and landscape initiatives in the Crown economy region.
I'm Rick Nelson. I'm the coordinator for Plains and Prairie Bottoms LCC, and although the name of the LCC may not indicate it, we have a huge Forest Service presence. Most of this national grassland, but there are one or two trees in the LCC. We try to burn them down as fast as they pop up. But the real reason I'm here is to keep tabs on that.
Hi, I'm Monica Thomasy, and I'm the Forest Service liaison to the LCC's and the National Planting Science Center in Washington office. And my role is to match people who want to find each other. So if you need to talk to somebody or want to talk to somebody,
Oh, you got it up already? Okay.
So there's a lot of really strong bipartisan support in Congress for it, and they're increasing the numbers. So if you're interested in getting involved in this as well,
Well, I can't really see the screen, so I'm going to focus here on my screen on my laptop. So I'm with the Forest Service, Rocky Mountain Research Station, and Yvette and others have contacted me and asked me if I could pull together a talk on partnership opportunities between Forest Service, CFLRPs, and the LCCs. And so I started exploring what kinds of examples are out there, and I told Monica, gee, I can't find any examples of current, and she said, well, you know, why don't you just make something up? No, I mean, come up with some hypothetical examples. And but fortunately, I went to a meeting recently in Santa Fe with the Association of Fire Ecology, and two speakers actually did identify some examples. And so I basically lifted some of their information and put them into this talk. So it sounds like many of you already are familiar with CFLRPs. What are they? They're basically supported by the Forest Landscape Restoration Act of 2009. They're a Forest Service initiative, 20-year span, 2009 to 2019. Up to $4 million each year are available through the Forest Service, and they're matched with, or they're encouraged to be matched by other federal and private funds. The funding is available for implementation and collaborative multi-party monitoring focused on restoration. The RFP process, or request for proposal process, is a competitive process. Forest Service, National Forests need to be the leader that submits the proposals. In 2010, 31 proposals were received and 10 were funded. And then again in 2011, some additional proposals were submitted, and in 2012, 10 of those were selected. So what are the CFLRP goals and objectives? You know, the main goal is really to reduce wildfire risk, and that's including through the use of fire for restoration and for maintaining natural fire regimes. But there are some additional goals, and those include improving fish and wildlife habitat, maintaining and improving water quality and watershed quality, and basically rehabilitating and restoring roads and trails, preventing and controlling invasive species, and using woody biomass and small diameter trees to help implement the strategy. So what are some of the opportunities that might be available through LCC and CFLRP partnerships? I'm not going to go into what the definitions of LCCs are, because I'm assuming if you're at this meeting, you're already familiar with the LCCs. So I'm really trying to focus in more on defining what CFLRPs are. But some of the shared goals are, you know, both of these initiatives are at the landscape level. In many cases, the geography overlaps. One of the main goals is collaboration. And monitoring is a key component, and as is restoration, especially monitoring restored restoration projects. So some of the opportunities could be to co-design data collection methods to leverage monitoring resources, sharing data storage and data search methods, mapping using, say, ArcGIS, and basically understanding changes across large landscapes. These are the 10 selected CFLRPs in 2010, and you can see that the amount of funding varies across the different CFLRPs. Most of the ones in 2010 were in western states: Idaho, Colorado, Montana, Arizona, New Mexico, California, Oregon, Washington, and then one in Florida. The mix in for the 2012 group is a little bit broader, in my opinion. I've highlighted two, and those are the Colorado Front Range CFLRP and the Southwest Crown of the Continent, because those are the two that I became aware of recently, where there is some collaboration with LCCs. And so I'm going to talk about those two examples. So the Front Range CFLRP has some of these following objectives: to promote a complex mosaic of tree densities, ages, and sizes at the stand level, as well as at the landscape level, number 6 down there, and also to promote more characteristic fire regimes, more favorable distributions of species, to maintain and improve a diverse native plant community, and to have habitat, to restore or improve habitat for wildlife species. So if you look at the map over there on the right-hand side, is the map of the Colorado Front Range CFLRP. And if you insert it into the boundaries of the Southern Rockies LCC, you can see that the boundaries of this particular CFLRP are much smaller. So the LCC boundaries are really encompassing portions of 4 states, and the CFLRP boundaries are really focused on the boundaries of national forests. So what are some of the efforts of the Front Range CFLRP to date? And I do want to point out that Jenny Briggs is here. And Jenny, do you want to wave your hand? Yeah. And so she is one of the leaders of, or one of the individuals working in the CFLRP that acquired funds from one of the LCCs. And she gave me some of these slides. So, so some of the efforts of the monitoring team were to begin to define desired future conditions, and this was done through field trips, guided discussions, a literature review, and some expert interviews. And then having a solid discussion of monitoring methods and developing a monitoring plan, and then developing a supplemental proposal to the Southern Rockies LCC. So the proposal team to the LCC was comprised of 3 co-PIs and 9 partners. The objectives of the proposal were to assess impacts of treatments on diverse components of ponderosa pine systems, to test some monitoring methods, and to contribute to landscape-scale, science-based adaptive management. Their proposal was awarded for about $76,000 for 2 years, and they were one of 4 projects funded out of a total of 71 proposals that year. This is just an overview of some of their sites. They had 3 units at one site on the Arapahoe Roosevelt National Forest, 3 units on the Boulder County Parks and Open Space, and 2 units at a site on the Pike San Isabel National Forest. So these are some of the kinds of treatments and areas that are being treated, using mechanical treatments and prescribed fires, some of the equipment being used at this one treatment in progress, Phantom Creek on the Pike San Isabel. So the data collection during this Tier 1, which was defined by the original monitoring team, is based on pre-existing Forest Service Common Stand exam plots, and basically monitoring the overstory trees, seedlings and saplings, and fuel loads. And the 2 forests collected the data on 300+ plots, 20+ treatment units, and during the pre-treatment phase in the summer of 2011. And then Tier 2 is the data collection that was enabled by the Southern Rockies LCC. And they basically expanded the total monitoring effort in several ways. They included some control sites They monitored on partner agency sites, not just on the national forests. And they included 4 categories of additional metrics that focused on tree ages, wildlife use, within stand structure, and understory plants. And some of the variables to be analyzed included species richness and cover of the understory, the number of species present or using the area of wildlife, and species use of various wildlife groups. And then they also looked at within stand forest heterogeneity and basically evaluating various levels of clumpiness. So, in conclusion, for this example, some of the lessons that they learned were some positives, very strong collaborative effort, some successful sharing of maps and data, and monitoring plans. But then they also have identified some challenges. You know, collaborating is a complex effort. There's a lag time before data can really inform how to, modify your management actions and your monitoring methods, the adaptive management component. And another challenge was that basically defining, implementing, and monitoring restoration is complex, and it's difficult, and it's not a linear process. Going on to the other example I wanted to share with you, this one is based on the Southwestern Crown of the Continent, CFLRP, and this one, some information was presented by Corey Davis, and so he helped, and he's an author on this talk. This particular CFLRP covers basically 1.5 million acres, or 70% of which is public land. It's very diverse biologically, and it's intact, and in the western United States. The restoration focuses on streams and forests using prescribed fire, natural ignitions, and there's also a component involving removal of exotic plants and restoring natives, and some additional water and fish manipulations. So one of the needs that was identified, and this is what I'm going to be focusing on, is really data, monitoring data, and what to do with it. One of the needs that was identified was how do you store the data, and who's going to store it, how accessible is it, and how long-lived will it be? And the answer to those types of questions was, well, the data can be stored within and outside of the Forest Service. So University of Montana came forward and is providing the capability for data storage and support as a match and an agreement with, as a partner. And then the Forest Service exports the data as spreadsheets, and it basically, this combination simplifies the public accessibility. Then another question came forward, how can you mine the data? And again, the needs were wanting the partners to have accessibility, ability to catalog and search the databases, and having a secure database. And the answer to this was, well, let's partner with the Great Northern LCC. Why? Well, because they have a program called LC-MAP. LC-MAP, let me go on, then I'll explain what LC-MAP is. So the collaborative effort here then was that the monitoring program funds were provided by Forest Service CFLRP. The monitoring data is collected and managed by the Forest Service, the University of Montana, and many of their partner groups in nonprofits and place-based organizations and citizen scientists. The data is stored by the University of Montana, and the data is cataloged and made accessible through LC-MAP managed by the Great Northern LCC. So this is just kind of a depiction of what I just described, and I'm trying to speed through my talk. So what does LC-MAP mean? Landscape Conservation Management and Analysis Portal. Basically, it serves as a repository or a place to store the data. You can catalog and search the data. It interacts or interfaces with ArcGIS. It's secure. It's a secure database. It's open to the public access, and basically it provides a bigger picture. So in summary, the LC map provides a tool. It is a tool that provides a virtual collaboration in data discovery, management, and analysis. Project managers have full control. Data remains fully editable and retrievable. The system keeps track of who submitted the data, who's working with it, and who can see or use it. It's a stable database, and it's supported. Source code is open for review. It's available at 2 locations on the internet, at the Great Northern LCC LC Map site and at the Southwestern Crown of the Continent webpage. And so just returning then to the opportunities and partnerships, I've described 2, and both of them are based on the need to collaborate across boundaries, the need to do something with monitoring data, and the desire to restore ecosystems. And all of these, the data, the monitoring data, will basically improve understanding of change across large landscapes.
About the science of fuel reduction and fire and what that means for biodiversity conservation.
Something different than what the synthesis project. See which one is that? I've done several.
The one on, you're looking at what the impacts are to, you had several focal species. I think you're looking at, you pull together the literature and what is fuel reduction, what is fire?
Oh, and fire ecology. Yeah, that's the talk I gave in, but we haven't published it yet. But it's basically a summary of the literature on the effects of fire and fuel reduction on a variety of species in the Southwest. And the species included birds, small mammals, and insects. We looked at several different areas where we've been, it wasn't just a synthesis project, it was really reporting more of our kind of synthesizing information across studies that we were doing out of Albuquerque. So we were doing some work in the Great Plains, on the Kiowa National Grassland. We did work on Little Rio Grande in relationship to a fire and fuel reduction project. We did work on the Santa Fe National Forest in relationship to a fuel reduction project on the Santa Fe National Forest. And we did similar work in Congress of Pine in California. So that's basically it. And if you're interested in that, I'd be happy to share that presentation. But individual studies are published, but they're as individual studies. And so my effort on that talk was to pull the information together to get a broader picture.
Any other questions for Deb?
The question is that I guess the university opponent of your last example. And so the monitoring data was assembled and delivered in the standalone and management-based tool, which is excellent. It's always been a challenge to have data quality assurance. And so my question on that is, how is that being handled, and then how is that funded as a long-term investment with the LCCs as well as the science of the Forest Service?
Well, the CFLRPs are 10 years, and so this was one of the new CFLRPs, first CFLRP. So there would be, active management for that duration, is my understanding. Now, as far as data quality, I can't answer that question because it's really not my study. But don't we have some southern? Yes, maybe you can answer that question about data quality and monitoring data.
Well, I would suggest that, so Corey Davis is the monitoring coordinator for our full Southwestern Crown CFLRP, and so part of his job is to really deal with those issues. And I'm aware of how thorny those issues are. And actually, I haven't talked about that with him. We're doing a great deal of implementation and data management just started in the last couple of months, but I'm not entirely sure. But I'd be happy to give you his information or Deb could as well, so you can get in touch with him about that. But one of the things I'll say is that through the CFLRP, we made a decision every single year to fund Corey's position through monitoring funds. And so that will happen for the duration of the project. And so he brings a great deal of expertise in landscape ecology and GIS skills, as well as having these data management and citizen science, et cetera, all kinds of monitoring expertise, which is why he was perfect for the position.
And this is for you, I think. Have you all had any conversations with the LCCs about extrapolating the findings from the CFLRP project to other similar ecosystems in the health?
And I think that we all are spending a great deal of time trying to figure out how to network effectively and to share conceptual models and data and results and data summaries and the annual reports. And also we are very dedicated to doing scientific publications with all of the work that we're doing, and so those will be starting to flow out as well. So there's an annual meeting, and also because the folks who are working under these grants, you can see who they all are, and we all get in touch with each other. And there was a real theme around water last year, and so you can start to see how together you're seeing all the pieces of the puzzle. And so for us, that was incredibly exciting because you look across there and you're like, oh, we need this and that, and this is great, and I'm going to call. And then you start to understand the timelines that they're on. And then you see them when you go to that. And partly in our LCC, I think it could be different in others, and some of the other coordinators can speak to this, or the same, but there's so much going on among the different agencies. There's so much jurisdictional complexity and organizational complexity and diversity of ecological issues as well. And we're playing a big role in networking and bringing people together to understand what's going on. You know, as time goes by, what we're hoping is that sort of the pieces of the puzzle can be put together. We're not approaching this from the LCC standpoint of, we're going to do an LCC-wide assessment and we're going to do it like this. And we're looking at it more like we're going to support those, hitch our wagon to those projects that look like they have the potential to help us move forward with a shared information base. Forest Service in our part of the world is a third of the land base in the U.S. side of the Great Northern, so they're the partner that we need. And certainly what they're interested in, and you guys, what the Forest Service does in our part of the world is going to be of primary interest to conservation efforts. And so that's why we're putting a big emphasis on that. Same with BLM and some other entities that are out there. Some LCCs have sort of different, they have a different land base, they have different jurisdictional complexity or not, and so, you know, I think about the Pacific Islands or something like that, it's very different. So that's how we're approaching it. So we don't have a strategy, but we're going to do this assessment, and these are the pieces we're going to use, and we're going to extrapolate these. But over time, we're hoping that these pieces of the puzzle can be pieced together in a way that helps us do that assessment collectively as a community, and not necessarily at the LCC level.
I was wondering, and following from that, at the national LCC level, is there some pressure to sort of demonstrate effectiveness of science, even in these early years, to the national power that we need? Because I felt that there's a little bit of that in the national CFLRP program, which makes a lot of sense. And the CFLRP initial 10 projects have all been asked by Meg Mossing and others to identify common indicators of, post-restoration monitoring that we can sort of scale up. And I've been wondering, because my project tries to represent both, if the LCCs are under that same sort of scrutiny.
We're getting to the point where we have certain performance measures and certain objectives that that we've identified. In the first few years, they were somewhat ambiguous, not ambiguous, I would say, things like vulnerability assessments conducted, that kinds of things. We're starting to move towards performance objectives that are more. Now, keep in mind, these are Fish and Wildlife Service program dollars, so our dollars are going to be closely connected to sort of Fish and Wildlife Service outcomes. So we're looking at things like species
habitats, ecosystem function. And so I think most of the LCCs are getting to a point where they're developing these conservation targets. Now, with that said, I've been in our LCC emphasizing the point that this isn't to say that in the Venn diagram of how we all fit together, that everybody has to do it like this. This is how we're answering for our dollars. But as somebody said, David Hayes said today, you put some skin in the game, Forest Service or BLM or others. BLM in our part of the world is doing the Little Rockies Rapids Regional Assessment. We're working with them on that. They're reporting on the outcomes of that, as that's tied to their funding. But that's still part of our LCC. And so, where the Forest Service is involved, there's ecosystem service metrics or whatever those might be. So that's how we're looking at it. But we are in the process of doing a strategic framework that will help at least the partners to the LCC understand how our Fish and Wildlife Service dollars coming to the LCC are going to be tied back to those kinds of outcomes. Frank, I think you have your hand up as well.
Well, one of the milestones we have in LCCs is adoption of a data management system, and we're talking about LCMAP, and so, it would be part for future projects that we haven't designed yet, and so scientists would typically say you wouldn't design your data analysis system until you knew what your goal was. And so I guess my question is LCMAP a generic enough tool that it will sort of accommodate all those future things you have?
I'm not even going to try it. Sean's been giving a talk on LCMAP, and the folks from USGS and the Port Office, Tim Kern is here, and he's sort of one of the masterminds behind that. They can talk to you all day long about this. Sean has to pretty much hit me over the head because I ask the same question over and over. So I'm not the data person to respond to those kind of data questions. But I would say look on the program for where Sean is talking about it, or talk to Sean directly.
I wonder if Deborah thought anything about that.
I think that it will provide what you're asking for. I have a lot more slides from Corey Davis too, and I'd be happy to provide those. It really goes into a lot more detail. I didn't have very much time today, so I just skimmed over a lot of that detail, but I'd be happy to provide that information to you.
Yeah, it's an analysis portal more than anything, so it has flexibility to be whatever you need.
So let me address that question from the Plains Prairie Powell's LCC perspective. Because one of the things I said I was here to do was kind of check up on the debt and wasn't being all that serious. But we have talked extensively about cross-LCC use of those types of tools so that we don't have to go out and find our own. And I don't know any more about the technical details than Yvette does, but we've been working with Sean to talk about how we might use that same system for our data needs instead of us going out and finding something new. So we are working very hard with our adjacent LCCs and cross-LCCs to make sure that we're taking advantage of those types of options.
And I think there are a few other LCCs that are also already bought into it.
Yeah.
Ditto for the Great Plains, and what we're trying to do is actually in our proposals that come in, try to explain this for you, but we're asking for data information formats so that we fit into standards and models in LCMAP in particular, and then we're asking for compatible systems. For example, with Bill's LCC, we want compatibility across the region, across LCCs, as much as we can control so that people can do queries and do analyses that are really going to be broad-based. So that's the goal.
So I just jotted up a few things as I was listening that seemed to be common. We don't have a whole lot of time introducing ourselves to half an hour, but I think it's important to just know who's in the room. But also passing around a sign-up list. So I'll make sure, and I'll work maybe with Monica to make sure that we connect folks with either the right LCC or the right CFLR project or whatever. If you sign your name on there and just write what you're interested in, we'll try to make sure you get connected. But I just wrote a few things in terms of Forest Service programs, and I'd like to at least get other ideas up here because I'm not familiar with everything that goes on. But we talked about CFLR a little bit, I&M or FIA kind of data and work that's going on, and certainly I&M programs are in all the agencies, and so that's a big national discussion, and we have LCC work groups talking about that as well. There's all kinds of different levels of collaboration going on there. The watershed vulnerability projects that somebody brought up, I know those are important And then there's also a lot of science capacity in the Forest Service as well as outside of that we can leverage on. Are there other programs that we just want to identify? And like I said, maybe Ron and take it from here and just.
We do in the eastern U.S. have a shared climate change framework that all of the state foresters in the east have signed off on too.
Is that a forest specific or is that how is that organized?
It's interagency and Forest Service and NGOs.
Dealing with that AIM strategy assessment in Jordan Monitoring last year, that was based around conceptual models, indicators, and supplemental indicators that we're trying to spread out across the West for monitoring. And there's no database yet, so there might be an opportunity to link up with licensees.
And that's a BLM,
AIM strategy. And we're looking for a database for where to put all our data, so it might be a good opportunity.
Yeah, okay.
I would throw out, in addition to that, watershed vulnerability, it's the watershed condition framework. There's also a terrestrial condition framework that's being developed. And then, since someone else brought up states, all states went through a process a couple of years ago doing a complete assessment, all lands assessment of forest resources and developing strategies to, take on their challenges and opportunities. And that's a pretty tremendous amount of data and analysis that's happened, and
Those
there's a
are the
lot of
state
conversation.
forest
The state
assessments?
forestry agencies,
Yeah.
and that's the whole continental U.S., Alaska, Hawaii, Pacific Islands, Puerto Rico, Virgin
Right,
Islands.
and I think it's, and so, what do they call, what's the program?
They're called forest action plans.
Oh,
And
so
there's actually-
it's like the equivalent of what's
No,
the
the state
wildlife
action
action
plans.
plans?
No, wildlife action plans, yeah.
There's a statewide forest strategies that came out of Farm Bureau.
Yeah, that's the same data.
And there's assessments that support those strategies.
Right, okay. On the watershed piece, there's actually two things. There were 11 pilot watershed vulnerability assessments for climate change. It's 3 around the country. And then the watershed condition framework, WCF, is Forest Service-wide 6 field watershed data and information, all available online about watershed conditions and national framework information on water quality, water quantity, roads, riparian,
Okay, and that's the watershed condition framework, and there's a terrestrial framework as well?
terrestrial one underway, it's not done yet, but the WCF was put up online about a year ago.
And that's National Forest System land only.
National Forest System land only. We were gonna do, well, we kind of tried to do private and then we decided not to.
Yeah, I just want to say, it looks like some people are kind of anxious to go, and if you want to get your name on that list, you might do so. That was something that you'd like to move with. And we know we're after, so if you need to leave, just go ahead, and then the rest of you will hang around till about 5:15 to have a little more discussion.
Sorry, good name. Sorry, Sri.
I just had a question. Compounding factor of all of this is desired future conditions. Can you speak up a wee bit, please? A compounding factor that I feel with is desired future conditions conservation targets. I noticed that in Deb's presentation, one of hers is take on desired future conditions and collaborative process. So it's value-based thinking, and the future is uncertain and unpredictable. And I'd like to know whether if anybody else has dealt with this idea, where the Forest Service stands, because that seems not super high. And that desired future conditions
Yeah.
and the metrics.
I suppose there's a huge discussion that could go behind that. I'm not for it, so anyone want to take a quick crack at that? Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah, National Forest has, and National Grasslands has a land management plan. And they, as part of the plan, they're supposed to define what the desired condition is for each of the resources. And we've got a legacy of old plans that predate climate change thinking, or they're not climate smart in many cases. Some are getting there, and they're the plans that have been most recently revised. We just got a new planning rule that defines the process for revising those plans, and that requires that they consider climate change. We've got policy coming out now that also requires that they consider climate change in planning and
developing their desired conditions. So it's in the works. It's going to take time for that to trickle into each individual forest plan, but they're going to get those desired conditions defined with that in mind. Not that they're going to take things back to historic range of variability or whatever, but they're going to have to look at projections and climate change, run scenarios, or whatever the process is needed to get those desired conditions in sync with them being climate smart.
And I know there is a discussion that's going to happen at some point, maybe tomorrow or the next day, about scenario. If there's guidance that is working on scenario. Yes.
I'm not sure this is exactly what you're getting at, but you're kind of looking for a list of things that ought to be on our radar.
Yes, that's what I'm.
Just an observation, a lot of what's here is what we're trying to do and the sort of the outcomes and outputs. How we do it is really important, and it's embedded in a lot of what folks are talking about, but I think it should be out on the, I'd love to encourage it being out there on the list. So when we talk about collaborative planning, when we talk about organizational learning, when we talk about multi-party monitoring, it should not be just subsumed by these program topics. Because again, I think how we get there matters.
Yeah, and you know, part of that might just reflect where I'm at right now. We're trying to, it's very opportunistic, and so I'm looking for sort of where those opportunities are, but I think we need to get more strategic, which would, you know, like you said, not be bound by those programs, but how do we do that? You know, how do we get to that? So, yeah.
There's one other national program that kind of relates to that on the list, the Joint Fire Science Program.
Yes.
It's a regional consortium networking and management science. And I think they decided to try and take the content out of the game and sort of fund relationship building and collaboration and technology and information transfer. But I'm not sure that all the world's problems can be solved in every
And we actually just started sharing, and this was more of an opportunity, but we're sharing a position with the Joint Fire Science Program in Missoula. It's an information specialist. Partly, we haven't really found that overlap yet, but we're working towards it. So.
I've got a few. One of them is land fire.
Yeah, we do know about land fire, but I'll put it up there. That's under the data, yes.
A couple in the Forest Service State Private Forestry different area include Forest Legacy Program, which is focused on identifying high priority areas for conservation easements. Might be important for activity. Another program is the Forest Stewardship Program, which works with private landowners to develop forest management plans.
Right. And actually, both of those, I think, are pretty big in Montana. So I'm familiar with the names, but we haven't quite, we have a lot of our partners working with those programs. So, you know, at this point, it's late in the day. We've kind of introduced ourselves. We've talked about the things, but we clearly don't have enough time to go further. Do folks want to continue to have more discussion, or should we maybe take this list of names and we can sort people out and look for some opportunities? I can talk with Monica and Ann and some others and try to make sure people get at least get linked up. Or was there anything else working on this? Sorry, it was a little bit disorganized, but hopefully it's a start. Yeah.
Just trying, maybe this is a better example. It's not really a program, but it's an effort. Cutting across deputy areas in the agency, the National Partnership Office and EMC are co-leading it. I'm one of those co-leads. It's called Empowering Collaborative Stewardship. And the whole idea is to grow collaborative capacity inside and outside the agency. We've got some non-federal partners who are now playing a significant role in helping us sort of think about where we may be falling short, things we might be able to do.
And that's a Forest Service?
It is.
Okay. What's can you tell me that again?
Empowering Collaborative Stewardship is just the name of the, yeah.
Okay.
So she's writing that down. I'd just like to invite you all to thank Yvette and Monica and Beth,